Good evening. We'll begin our program in just a few moments. We're just waiting for everyone to join the webinar. Good evening. This is Jeffrey Herbst, President of American Jewish University. We'll begin our program in just a few moments as we wait for a very large audience to join us. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Herbst. I am president of American Jewish University, and I'd like to welcome you to a very special program tonight. I'll be joined by Israeli-American cellist Amit Peled to talk about his program, My Journey with My Jewishness. This program is part of our B'Yachad Together Spirited by AJU program. Since the beginning of the crisis in the middle of March, we've presented over 100 programs that seek to educate, entertain, and inform our audience in Southern California, around the United States, and indeed in many international countries. We've been enormously gratified by the tens of thousands of viewers like you who have joined us, and very much hope that you will continue to participate in our programming. You can see our upcoming programming at our website, www.aju.edu, where you can register for programs in advance. I should note that next week we'll be devoting a special series of programs to Haredi Jews and understanding how they're portrayed, why we're fascinated by them, and how their particular society works. Tonight, it's a pleasure to be joined by Amit, who's in Baltimore tonight. We're delighted to welcome you, and this is going to be a very special program that Amit presents, My Journey with My Jewishness. Amit, thank you so much for joining with us. Thank you so much for being with our audience, and we very much look forward to your program.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and this is the easiest travel I've had in my life. I'm playing now for people in LA, and I'm sitting in my home in Baltimore. And just before we start, I want to mention that I live here in Baltimore because Johns Hopkins in here, and on the normal days, I'm a professor there, not for medicine, but for music. And I've been here teaching for the last 17 years already. I started very young. And it has been a joy to be here and to make it my base, my home for me, for my wife, and our 3 kids who are attending a Jewish day school here in Baltimore. So this program started because of a few loves or hobbies I have. One of them, as you will see, is to talk. I just like to talk as much as I like to play. And I always felt that in classical music, the artists in the old days, before Corona, we would go on stage, just bow and sit and play, and then leave the stage, and there will never be a communication, something more than just the notes with the audience. So I've decided to start sort of a performance chat. I never expected it to be something that will link into Zoom at the end, but here we are. And this program is really to share with you guys my story, my journey from a small, tiny kibbutz in Israel here to Baltimore to teach in Johns Hopkins, and in normal days to spend about half of my time in airports, in concert halls, all over the world with this guy, with my best friend, the cello. So it all started quite a few years ago when I was 10 years old. I was born in a kibbutz. Kibbutz is a tiny community, agriculture-based in Israel in the north. And when we were in 4th grade, I was supposed to pick an instrument because everybody had to pick an instrument. And I was really cool. I was into basketball. If you would see me face to face, you would see I'm 6'5". I'm very tall. But back then, I had to pick an instrument. And being a cool kid, I didn't know what to pick. I didn't want to play at all, but there was a girl who played cello. And this girl was 14 when I was 10, and I just didn't dare talking to her. So I had a plan. with my chutzpah, I decided, you know what? I'll just play whatever she plays and she will marry me. That was my plan. It was very simple, and of course we never talked in school, but I got stuck with this instrument, and that's why I started to play the cello. But when I started thinking about it in concerts, what made me a musician, it goes even further back. And I think my first memories as a child is my mother singing. And one of the songs is Eli Eli, a song that many of us know, especially in Israel. It's a song that we sing, it's like national anthem. And my mother, her voice is so beautiful, and I can hear it, I can smell it even now, how beautiful and warm it is till this day. And when I was a child, she used to sing it to us every Friday. And I fell in love with the song, and that was something I used to sing with her. So when I started playing professionally and made my first CD, that was the first piece, the first track on the first CD I made. And I would like to share this song with you as sort of the beginning of my journey. Let's go back to the kibbutz in Israel, a little boy, 10 years old, and here is Eli Eli. That was Eli Eli. And from age 5, where maybe I heard it the first time and remember it, to age 10 now, when I had my first cello lesson, I have to share with you that because that was really funny. I arrive in our small, tiny music school in the kibbutz, and there's a teacher who is an immigrant Jewish person from Hungary who can hardly speak Hebrew. And I arrive barefoot because I'm a kibbutznik. You know, I just walk barefoot, shorts, come to the lesson. I don't have a cello yet, and I sit down, and he hands me a cello. And he says, well, Amit, look at the music and play. And I start laughing. I don't know how to read music. I don't know how to hold the cello. And he said, it doesn't matter. Just try to play. And all I remember are a bunch of black dots many black dots on the page, and I have no idea what it is. And then after I tried, luckily there were no iPhones back then, so I didn't record it, or my mother didn't record it, but I remember the noise and the scratches. But after that, he started teaching me how to hold the bow, how to sit with the cello, and we had our lesson, and I had my homework, and then the next lesson came, the next week, and again, he asked me to play the same, whatever it was, with black notes, just a lot of black notes. And again, I didn't know what to do, but we went through it every beginning of lesson. It was the same bunch of black notes that I had to struggle through. And eventually I realized this is the Bach Suites, number 1. And it's a piece that Bach wrote in 1720 for one cello, for cello solo, and has become sort of the Bible of us cellists. We all have on our music stand at home, you can't see it here, but we have our etudes, our exercises, and the Bach Suites. This is sort of, you're not a real cellist if you don't play the Bach Suites. Well, I started it in my first lesson, and I didn't understand why, but when I was 14, I asked my teacher, why have you kept me going on this suite every single week? Why has this been the beginning of our each lesson? And he said, look, Amit, one day you will realize it, but the Bach Suite is exactly like the story of creation in Bereshit. It's a story that we all know. We all grew up on it. The first time we heard it as kids, remember our dad or rabbi, somebody telling us the story, Adam, Eve, the apple, the snake, all of that stuff. It's a simple story. However, Amit, he said, when you will become an adult, you will look at this story differently. And one day when you will be married and you'll be a husband, you will look at this story differently. And when you will have kids, you will look at it differently. And when your kids will grow up, you will look at it differently. And when you'll be a grandfather, you will look at it differently. And just before leaving this world, you will look at it differently. And I was amazed by it. Now, I'm at the stage of being a father now, and a husband, and an adult, and I have perspective, and I look at it, yes, very differently. I don't know yet the older man or the living the world, I hope, yet those stages, but I can tell you that this suite, which you're about to hear now, has been with me from day one, and it's always a mirror of who I am. And it's wonderful. It started with scratches in the first lesson, went into beautiful sounds, but now there's much more to it. The story of creation, the story of who we are, how we are as humans, is much more complicated. And I would like to share with you those notes that I struggled through in the first lesson. And this is 3 movements from the first Bach suites, the first piece he wrote. I'm sure many of you know it. First movement is a prelude. Second movement you will hear is a saraband, which is a Spanish dance. And the third one is a jig, which is an English dance. Here is the Bach suite for cello solo. I can feel your clapping. I can't hear it, but I can feel it. Thank you. Thank you. So this was a Bach, and going on chronologically, growing up in the kibbutz with other kids, being really good in basketball and sort of standing out in it and having to make a decision. When I was 14, both my basketball coach and my cello teacher both met with me and said, you know, Amit, this is too serious for both of us. You have to make a decision. You can't practice 4 hours cellos and do training every day and 2 games, and it's just too much, not to mention school, yeah? So that was a lot, and I remember myself sitting in my room at my parents' house and thinking, okay, what shall I do? And I thought, well, you know, Jewish people never made it to the NBA, so there's no way I'm going to make it there anyway, and I'm not tall enough, so let's stick to the cello. It's more guaranteed. However, I ended up being 6'5", so you never know. But I'm happy about my decision. I still love basketball. By the way, I'm a big fan of the LA Lakers, so a lot of you guys now watching me, I can't wait to watch the playoffs now with my boys. It starts soon, so go Lakers. When I was 14, it was the first time I realized the power of telling a story through music. I didn't realize it before. I was just playing, and I guess I was good at it. They sent me to competitions to do this, to do that, but I didn't really realize what I'm doing. But when I played for the first time the Kol Nidrei, which I'm going to play for you now, I really had a feeling that now I'm able to speak for the first time in another language, and that language is music. Now I can say that I speak Hebrew, English, German, my wife is from Germany, and music. So I speak 4 languages, and I really treat music as a language. Back then, when I played Kol Nidrei, of course, all of us in Israel, even the ones that are not religious like me, we all fast in Yom Kippur and go to synagogue, and we obey the rules of that one holy day in the year at least. And we know the story of Kol Nidrei. And when my teacher presented me that piece, I was really shocked that a composer can tell us the same story through music. And Bruch, who wrote this music, was not Jewish. But he was invited, like we all do. You know, sometimes we invite best friends that are not Jewish. We invite them in the high holidays to come with us to the synagogue. This year it will be easy. You just Zoom it. It will be the cheapest ticket for high holidays would be this year. But you just Zoom it. Normal years, you get a ticket and you go and you invite your friends. Bruch did the same thing. His friend invited him to hear the Kol Nidrei sang by the cantor in synagogue, and he was blown away by the story and by the melody. So he went home and he wrote down, note by note, the prayer, the Kol Nidrei. Kol Nidrei. He wrote the prayer, and also the meaning of it really struck him. The fact that in our religion we have a day that we can indulge with ourselves or with God and say sorry. Simply say sorry for all the bad things. So the realization that we do something bad during the year, but the one day we have, the chance we have to say sorry. And Bruch wrote it down into music. So I always like to explain to people that don't go to synagogue the difference between synagogue, or old traditional synagogue, I should say, which is much more chauvinistic. You have the women and the men separated, and a church, where in the church the priest will speak to you, like I am now speaking to you. However, in the synagogue, on the bima, as we call it, where the rabbi and the cantor are standing, they're not facing the congregation. They're facing the Bible, the Torah, and they're facing, in a way, God. Not only that, they're covered with a talit, with a big piece of cloth that covers them. So there is a distance, a physical distance, between the person that is pleading for forgiveness and their family or the congregation, their friends and family. You will hear the prayer, the Kol Nidrei, recited by the cantor, which will be me, but at the same time I will have to act all the other parts. So I will sing the women replying, which will be higher notes. And the men, the lower voice. In the middle of the first half of the piece, you will hear, like in any trial, before the verdict, you will see the little man, or the victim in that case, standing there, and then from the sky or into your ear will come the sound of what I call the Death Eaters, or the people that are taking your soul to hell because you did not convince God this year that you deserve forgiveness. So you will hear this very rhythmic low voice playing like this. And this will happen twice. Second time will be even louder. And if any of you read Harry Potter, for me it's like the Azkaban, the people, the sort of the Death Eaters that come to eat your soul before they take you to the jail in Azkaban. So this is a very scary moment in the piece, or in the trial of each one of us at the end of each year at the prayer of Kol Nidrei. After that, like in a trial, the judge will say, well, before the verdict, would you like to say something? And that will be my chance on the cello to plead for forgiveness, to plead with all my heart. You will see me play fast, up and down the instrument, loud, yearning for forgiveness. And at the end of it, you will hear the theme again, played under the fire of hell, like this. So the same calm prayer that the cantor sang with the back to you guys in the beginning will be now really with a fire under my feet. And after that will come the verdict. And Bruch chooses for the verdict, he chooses a theme from Christianity, a German folk Christian theme, to end this Kol Nidrei. I'm not going to tell you if I made it to heaven or to hell at the end. You'll have to decide. But this is sort of the story. And I know that many of us know it, but this is at least what goes through my mind when I play it, and I hope you will enjoy it with me. Here is Kol Nidrei by Bruch. Thank you. So, for the last piece, I want to take you back with me to the first year I started cello, because something very special happened to me back then. It was around Hanukkah. You know, in Israel, like here in Christmas or Hanukkah and Christmas here, basically you get presents and you eat. You eat well. And in December, in Hanukkah in Israel, when I was 10 in 4th grade, this was a few months after I started to play the cello, my parents went to the next town, which is Afula. And in Afula, there's nothing besides the best falafel in Israel. But there was a music store, one music store in Afula, and they asked the guy there, you know, do you have anything for cello? Our son is playing cello, and we want to give him a Hanukkah present to encourage him to practice and to play. So there was one tape cassette. This was the 80s of last century, tape cassette. And this was Pablo Casals, the great Pablo Casals, playing short pieces, including the Kol Nidrei, and including the piece that I will finish the program with by Popper on this tape cassette. And they gave it to me for Hanukkah. I didn't know who Pablo Casals was. I didn't know what cello he played. I didn't know anything about him, but I put it in, and from that moment, that was my sleeping pill. Basically, every day I had this boombox on my bed. I have 3 sisters. We share one bedroom, and I was on a bunk bed at the top. And I used to press play every night, hearing Pablo Casals, and then falling asleep with it, with the tape. Many years later, which was 2012, I met Mrs. Casals, the widow of Pablo Casals, who is still alive. She's in her mid-80s, and she lives here in Washington, D.C., and I played for her. And to make the story short, she handed me his cello to use. And this is the same cello that was on that tape cassette, and the same cello that Pablo Casals have recorded all those magnificent pieces. And I've been sharing that cello in the world with so many people in all continents, and at some point wanted to also write a children's book where I could share the story with kids and not just with adults, because normally, as we know, people who listen to classical music are not young. But I have started to play for kids and read the story for them. I think you have a link for the book. And with a good friend, Marnie Fogelson, who wrote the words, and with an illustrator, we came up with this story, and I'm very proud of it. It's even give me more pride than playing a beautiful phrase on a big stage, to see kids looking at the book and listening to the story. The story is told by the cello. The cello is telling the story to the kids. It's called A Cello Named Pablo. And Pablo, the cello, is telling the story of its life from 300 years ago in Italy until today. And I'm just part of it. So a lot of what you heard today about the girl in the kibbutz, about the basketball, it's all in this book. And the last piece is the end of my journey, or at least where I am today, as a young, or let's say middle-aged, I can say, Jewish Israeli-American musician or citizen of the world. And why I'm saying it, because I've gone through a journey from growing up in a kibbutz where there's no religion at all. As many of you may have known, if you go to Israel, most kibbutzim are not religious. We don't even have a synagogue in the kibbutz, or now we have, but when I was a child we didn't. We used to turn one of the classrooms into a synagogue on the high holidays, but there was no synagogue. So from that, being an Israeli and then Jewish, when I came here to this country after the army to study at Yale University, I started to have questions about identity. Who am I? Because in this big melting pot, which we call America and we all love, it's hard to find yourself, because there are many Americans, but there are Italians, there are Spanish, and who are we, the few Israelis? And I felt for the first time Jewish, very strongly, and started to go even to synagogue. This was a very strong feeling. After that, now jumping and having kids, of course I wanted to go to to Jewish school, and also we speak Hebrew at home, but I'm not religious. And it's hard for me to say it, even if there's a rabbi in the congregation, but I don't really believe in it. And I found that my religion, now knowing a lot of rabbis and congregations and Jewish people that follow the path, My religion is music. This is exactly how I follow music, fanatically in a way, not in a negative way. And music is what guides me in my life, and music is what I believe in. And because of that, I want to finish this program with a piece that was not written by a Jewish composer, a piece that was written by Popper. Popper was a great cellist from Czechoslovakia, and he wrote this amazing piece for himself. He was the greatest cellist of the 19th century. He was bored by what people wrote for cello. So he started writing pieces so he can do whatever he wants on the cello. And I thought that this would be a great, cool piece to finish the program, because that's where I am as a musician. Music is my religion, and that's what I want to share with you at the end before we have some questions and answers. This piece he wrote in Budapest, in Hungary. He taught there. Franz Liszt, the great pianist, invited Popper, who was his buddy, to teach with him in Budapest. And this is Popper walking around Budapest and exploring the beauty of the gypsy music. So here is Hungarian Rhapsody by Popper. Okay, now I need a drink.
Amit, that was fantastic. Thank you so very
Thank you.
much for all of that. It was a wonderful performance. I'm just sorry that you can't hear the audience reaction, but I know you have
Oh,
hundreds of people out there applauding for you.
good. Thank you. Thank you.
We've put in the we put up links to Amit's children's book, Cello called Pablo, and where you can find it. And I think we have a time for just a few questions. Frankly, I mean, most of the comments in the question section are just how wonderful your performance was.
Oh, okay. That's good.
One question several people have asked is, what cello are you playing tonight?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had this famous cello by Pablo Casals from 2012 until 2018. It was a deal for 1 year, but it ended up being 6 years. And this is my cello. It's an English cello from 1800. It's a Thomas Dodd cello, and it's a beautiful cello. And that's my voice. It has been my voice. It was a cello of my teacher, Bernard Greenhouse, who used to play in the Beaux-Arts trio. He passed away already, but this was his cello, and I'm honored to have it now for me. But I do miss the Pablo Casals cello.
Another member of the audience asked, do you play Kol Nidrei at a synagogue on the holidays?
I'm usually, in Kol Nidrei, I'm just a father and a husband, so I don't play. I usually at home with my family.
I mean, we had a chance to talk about how you've adapted to the stay-at-home quarantine, inability to present live. Why don't you tell us, because you've developed a very active schedule in lieu of live performances.
Yeah, so as I said in my story, I'm really used to be on the road so much and play for people, and it was a big shock, I have to say, in March. For me, I was just on my way to San Francisco from Cleveland, and then I had to go to Mexico to play. It was actually too crazy, my life, I have to say. I think a lot of us have realized that we have run really a marathon in our life, and this has slowed down everything. But I missed in the first months the ability to communicate, to connect to the audience. Through Johns Hopkins, I had to continue teaching, so we started using Zoom, and I've realized the huge potential that this format has for us musicians, and I started teaching not only my students, but many other students through what I call an online cello academy, the Amit Peled Online Cello Academy, where I collect students. I mean, they have to audition, but I have students from literally all over the world, and I choose usually 10 at a time. And this has been amazing. I had a cellist, young girl from Turkey, from Saudi Arabia, from Hawaii, from Korea, you name it. And you know, we adjust the time. And the beautiful thing about it is that I have always 10 students in the academy, but we have what we call inactive participants, where people pay much less money and they can pop into any of the lessons, and then we do one technique class a day. So I've been exposed to so many cellists that normally there wouldn't be any way for me to see or to hear. And even those concerts, my kids said today, "Oh, Dad, you have a concert tonight. So where is it?" We make fun of it. And I said, "Well, I'm going to LA today." And they said, because the tradition in my family is that since they were born, my wife and I take them with us from June to August. They always travel with me. So my son said, "Oh, damn, we should have been in LA today because it's summertime." So this is really hard, but at the same time, I'm playing for you guys now, and maybe there are many more people that are not from LA, and they're exposed to music, they're exposed to me, to the cello, to Israel. So I feel that my mission of being an ambassador of classical music and how special it is, and of being an Israeli, I have to say, in places where sometimes people think wrongly about us. So I'm happy that now with this format I can do that. And like my wife says, she says, it took you a week to become as busy as you always is. So just, you know, do your thing and leave us to do our things. And it's true. It's true. So, but I love being able to connect to cellists now and to audiences. And I do what I call Cappuccello with Amit. Every week, every Sunday, I go live on my Facebook page, and I usually talk about cello or about music, or people have questions. Sometimes it's not about cello, it's about music, about politics, whatever it is, but I like to be accessible to sort of my public. And I know for a fact that a lot of people that have never heard me in concerts are now aware of cello and classical music because of the quarantine. And even today, I don't know how many hundreds are watching or have been watching, but this will be on Facebook and stays there maybe for a while. You know, normally, I have to say, when you go to a concert, even in LA, if it's not Yo-Yo Ma in the Hollywood Bowl, you would have, if you're lucky, 500 people. But now we're exposed to so many. So I'm hoping that this will stay with us, not as the only thing we do, but the combination of the community we're creating now, this small village online, with the face-to-face, which is something we need as humans, will create much more excitement for classical music.
Amit, thank you so much. That was a wonderful reflection on an old tradition used in a new way, power of social media, but also a reflection on its limits. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you for your music. Thank you for your efforts. We appreciate it. I wish you could feel the enthusiasm of the audience. And again, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in. This has been another in a series of American Jewish Universities Bayachad Together. We hope you'll join us often. Go to our webpage at www.aju.edu. We have a wide variety of programming coming up in the next few weeks. Amit, good evening. Thank you again so much. And thanks so much to you, the audience.
Thank you to everybody. Bye-bye.